Welcome to ATX Underground, the show about anything Austin. My name is Karen Berry, and I will be your host for the next hour. Today, we have a special guest, Debi Krakar, and she is with Hounds for Heroes. Welcome, Debi.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming today. Today is Mother's Day, and we are here talking to Debi about PTSD trained dogs. Could you tell me what is PTSD?
PTSD is something that happens to a person that either is exposed to prolonged adverse situations, or something very, very traumatic happens, and it actually changes the brain, and it causes the person then to have symptoms such as anxiety in public, to be depressed, to be anxious, to have flashbacks, to have a heightened sense of awareness all the time. Wow. And it is very difficult to live with because it has changed their life. It's changed their perception of the world.
Right. Oh my goodness. You know, I was watching the video about you know, the affliction of PTSD, and it just seems very, very traumatic to live with that constantly. I couldn't imagine what that would be like. So can you tell me how you locate your dogs?
Yeah, so our program is called Hounds for Heroes, and we train service dogs to work with veterans and first responders who have PTSD. And the key with the dog is that they are extremely well trained, but that also that they have the temperament where if they're out in public, that they're really unflappable, that they're not going to be fazed by a truck or walking past the meat counter at the grocery store. Right. They're not going to be upset by crowds, that they are very easygoing and rock solid. Right. And then that in turn gives their handler or their person that has PTSD this sense of calm, this sense of confidence. That dog is there, they're their buddy, they will go with them in these situations, and hopefully then allow the victim of PTSD to regain their life.
Right. Yes, I'm not military. I very much appreciate everyone who does you know, military service for us on our behalf. So that's fantastic, but I couldn't imagine what it would be like to be in a war zone, having, you know, bullets and ammunition flying at you. I wonder what it would be like to, you know, walking through the streets and having cars, you know, honking horns, and sometimes you have alarms go off all of a sudden. You know, I could imagine that it would probably be like, you know, you're trying to duck or something, you know, but you want to control those actions in public because people will be like, why is that person on the ground? Right. So I think it would probably be very, very comforting to have, you know, a buddy that can sense, because I was watching some of the YouTube videos, and there was one guy, and he was giving an interview, and he started kind of slipping back into the, you know, the war zone kind of in his mind. Right. And as he became more agitated, the dog kind of comes up, and the dog was like, oh, love me, you know, licking his face. And he was like, okay, see, the dog is seeing that I'm becoming agitated, right, and has, you know, intervened to help that. Right. So I give presentations often with one of our veterans. We're trying to spread awareness on PTSD and try to get, especially the military folks who are reluctant to admit that they need help, trying to help them see that they could ask for help and that a dog might be an answer. So we do presentations together, and he gets kind of nervous when he's talking in front of a group, and his service dog, Jenny, will like push herself up against his leg and just stay there, and she will not move until we're done talking. Aww. And then when we're done and you can tell he's relaxed, then the dog will ease off of his leg a little bit. I'm getting goosebumps.
Yeah, she very much senses when he needs her to be right there. Yes.
Just kind of like, you know, cues, like a touch or something to remind the person to calm down. You know, the emotions are becoming more and more heightened. Right. You know, that's kind of the beauty of the dog. That's really, you know, we can teach that dog to have impeccable manners out in public. We can teach the dog to do tasks to help the veteran with the disability. But really what happens is once they become a team and they're together 24/7, that dog picks up on what that person needs. Right. And then, you know, that becomes, I think, instinctual for the dog. Right. So I was watching another YouTube. I live on YouTube.
Okay.
I was actually preparing for the show, and what I do is I try and get as much information as I possibly can, learn as much as possible about my host, my
Right.
guest, and so there was a lady was sleeping. Can you tell me what is the process of training a dog to wake a veteran up or anyone afflicted with PTSD? So the person like started to thrash, and the dog was like laying on top of the person. How does that work?
We haven't had someone request us to teach that, but I have had veterans who have said that once they get home, that's what the dog does.
Right.
So I haven't had to teach it. It just seems that the dog.
It's a natural response.
It's a natural response, in my guess, is what's
Nice.
occurring.
That's the beauty of dogs, isn't it?
Yes. We also see, I've had several veterans report that they used to need sleeping pills
Right.
because, at night it would all come back. And since they've gotten the dog, they don't need the sleeping pills because just having that warm, furry body right there,
Yes.
they feel safe, they feel comforted. If they're feeling stressed, they pet the dog, they go back to sleep. So,
Good. That's good.
we see that the dog, provides those types of benefits.
Right. I know someone in Midland, and he's a war veteran, and to save his troop, he jumped on top of a live munition, and it went off.
Oh my.
And he has very terrible PTSD. And he has told me incidences where he will wake up, of course, in a cold sweat, but he's thrashing so hard that he wakes up bloody because he's injuring himself. And that just, for someone who has devoted their life to, because basically when you're signing up for military, you go overseas, sometimes you wonder, will I be coming home again,
Right.
or will I come home with an affliction that is lifelong,
Right.
So that's why I feel that this program is so important, and that I would like more people to know about PTSD dogs. So I know that you brought a video with you. Could you kind of tell us a little bit about the video, sort of lead us into the?
So the star of the video is Pat Stockwell.
Right.
He lives fairly close to our facility, which has been nice. He has PTSD. His
Right.
biggest complaints when he came to us were that he used to drive convoys, and so he was very apprehensive in the car.
Right.
So one of the things that we taught his service dog to do was that when he's driving, she lays her head over his lap.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
And so now he can drive and he doesn't have road rage, right? He's not
Right.
edgy and honking and swearing and all that,
Yes.
all those behaviors. Another thing that he said that was really a big problem is he'd go to like a store like Costco where it's kind of loud, it's echoing, there's a lot of people and activity.
Right.
And he tells us stories of where he'd be in Costco for 5 minutes and then he'd be in the corner, like with his head down and just shutting down because it was so stressful.
Right.
And now that he has the dog, he can go to Costco and he can be a normal person like he
Right.
always was.
Functioning in society like
And-
everyone else does.
Yeah, and we take it for granted that we can go to Costco. And,
Definitely.
But when that's taken away from you,
Right.
right? So he's been a success story. Very passionate about the use of dogs.
Right.
In fact, he's still in the reserve, and so he takes his dogs to his training exercises,
Oh,
which is kind of
nice.
neat. Trying to spread the word to the rest of his, military friends that,
Right.
hey, this dog's changed my life, and it is an option for you, and if you need help, get it.
Exactly, exactly. So we're about to cut to a video that will show us the benefit of having a PTSD dog in your life, and ways that we're going to cover ways that you can acquire a dog for yourself. And when we come back from the video, we will have Levi. He is a therapy dog, and we're going to show you some tricks. So we'll be right back.
My first 3 deployments were in Iraq, 07, 08, and 09. I did 3 back-to-back tours. My last deployment, when I was in Afghanistan, I was driving. I did over 70 convoys and over 20,000 miles in like 9 months in Kandahar. I was on the road a lot, and over there, They're allowed to get in your convoy, which is unheard of in Iraq.
Oh, did you see that?
In Afghanistan, if you're on patrol, and all of a sudden there's kids, and all of a sudden the kids go away, something's going to happen, and you don't like that. My first deployment was tough in '07 because of my son-in-law being killed in Iraq. And she's got a picture at the house of me and him hugging. And I'd see him in the afternoon, and we talked for a little bit, and it was just weird. And then, 2 weeks later, I think, is when he was killed. I escorted his body home. That was very, very tough and very emotional on me, and I still deal with that every day. With me and all the other Reserve and National Guards out there, when we get home, we got to put our suit and tie on and go right into work with a bunch of civilians that have no clue what's going on in my head. It's a tough thing. I mean, I was lucky. I had the support of my wonderful wife that was sitting there going, "You're not the same person." I go, "Yeah, I am. I'm fine. I'm fine." But after this last deployment, with her constantly nudging me, I was like, you know what? Let me go check this out. 4 or 5 months ago, my neighbor, who is a soldier, was walking by and he had a dog. And I was like, "Where'd you get a dog at?" And he said, "I got it at Austin Dog Alliance." You know, I've thought about him before, but never really put too much thought into him. So we went there within, an hour? We were like, okay, we're committed. Hey, down, go. Yeah. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
Let's go. There you go. Come on, let's go. Leave it. Good girl. My name is Patrick Stockwell. This is my wife, Patty Stockwell. And this here is Jenny. She's gonna be my service dog.
The wonderful thing about this program is that you're taking a dog who may not be wanted and who's not doing well, certainly where they are, and you're giving them a job. And their job is helping somebody who isn't doing very well. And so you're taking two elements of society who maybe aren't doing very well separately. And by just giving them just a little bit of training and putting them together, you're changing their lives for the better for a long time.
She is going to be his battle buddy. He's going to be able to reach out and pet her and just be there for him.
We're gonna become a team like in the military, like when you're with a squad and you train with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And with her, it's gonna be the same thing. She's gonna know when I'm getting stressed, and she's gonna walk up and say, "Yo, let's go, let's get out of here." If someone gets a dog, they should feel, hey, I paid my dues for this country. Let me let a dog help me out a little bit on the back end. It's like right now, I'm ecstatic. I'm thrilled to death, but I'm also scared to death and very nervous about this because I don't know where it's gonna go. But with the reassurance of Sherry and my wife, it's gotten better in 2 days. She's a great dog. She's a loving dog. They did a great job. I love her to death already.
You can really change so many people's lives and so many animals' lives just with supporting this program.
That was a very moving video. Thank you so much for bringing that with you today. So that is some of the benefits of having a dog with you when you're afflicted with PTSD. We have Levi with us today. Levi is going to do some tricks, and Debbie is holding some treats. So could you kind of explain how you train your dogs?
Yeah, so all of our dogs are trained using positive training methods, which mean we say yes, we give them praise, we give them toys, and we give them treats.
Right.
We like to work with Labs and Goldens because they're very food motivated, so they learn quickly. We also use a clicker. It's a way for us to mark a behavior and tell the dog very quickly what it is that they did that we wanted.
Right.
And some of our things that we train our PTSD service dogs to do are fairly intricate and require us to break it down into maybe 5-6 steps.
Right.
And so the clicker allows us to kind of teach the dogs in approximations as they're getting closer to the end behavior. So with Levi, you learned using a clicker his entire life, and so when I get out the treats in the clicker, you will see that he will become very animated because he says,
That's for me.
yeah, oh, I like this.
We're about to start. I like
Yes,
that.
I like that training thing. So right now he's in, I'm waiting my turn mode, but as soon as that clicker sounds, he will be ready to work.
Awesome.
Or to learn. He knows that it's right now for him it's a game.
Right.
So a little bit about Levi.
Yes.
Levi is a therapy dog,
Right.
meaning that his purpose is to go places and to bring joy.
Very cool.
So he doesn't go in public with me unless we're, on the way to see a client.
Right.
And I don't have a disability. Although I certainly, when I am in rush hour traffic, he certainly calms me down as well.
Nice.
Right?
Because I know in rush traffic, I could use some calming
Yes.
down also.
Everyone needs a therapy dog when they're in rush hour traffic.
Definitely.
so-
And more dogs need to be out of cages and in homes with loving families. So there's all types of different ways that we can utilize animals in our day-to-day life. Instead of having them in cages, they should be in homes. So what is the difference between a PTSD dog and a therapy dog?
So again, if PTSD service dog, do you want to show, we have a list that shows what is a service dog and what they're required to do.
We can go over that in a little bit.
Okay.
You were telling me about where you found Levi. Can you kind of go over that with me again?
Yeah, so us and Dog Alliance in its early days did pet adoptions,
Right.
not service dogs. And someone found a box of puppies along Highway 71, and they were covered in green paint.
Paint?
Yes, I'm guessing that they were getting to the age where they were getting into mischief, and somebody had had enough. So, covered in green paint.
That's a shame.
I met the foster at the vet's office, and we were doing intake, getting them all their basic shots.
Right.
And I saw Levi, and I was like, oh, I love that dog. Like, something about him and me,
Yes.
I was like, oh, I want that dog. And at the time, I already had 2 dogs. I said, no, 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 no. I went home. I lasted 4 hours. And then I went to the foster's home and I said, he's mine. Like
That's my dog.
He's mine. And
Give me the dog.
yes, and so he has been really like by my side, touching my feet.
Yes, I see that. He's on top of you now.
Yes, I call him Velcro. He doesn't go far.
Velcro, I love that.
Yeah, so he's been on my feet for the last 7 years.
Very cool. I like that a lot. Okay, so you're going to demonstrate a couple of tricks that Levi does for us?
Yeah, so he knows some basics.
Awesome.
We learn these so that when we work with kids, we can put them at ease.
Yes.
Because, everyone likes a little trick. So.
Yes.
And
okay, I'm
as
going to step away and let you have the
Okay,
the
so we'll
spotlight.
do just a couple things. So you will see, he knows I now have the treats in
Of
my
course.
hand.
Those are for me.
So some positive training is you can use the clicker to mark the behavior. So we can do a spin and mark the behavior. We can do a sit and mark the behavior. We can do a rollover. Come here. We'll get at the end of the rug here. Down. Roll over. Good boy. If I don't have the clicker in my hand, a good boy works too. He knows that I am telling him that he did what I wanted. And as you can see, I have his attention, undivided attention.
Yes.
Some things we work on when we're in the early stages would be getting a really nice walk, real close in between obstacles. Stay by me. And as you can see, he kind of, when we work with the service dog, they need to be unobtrusive in public. And so this kind of behavior where that dog is right there on a loose leash and is very in tune with their handler is really needed. We teach the service dogs, if they're in a restaurant, we teach them to kind of curl up underneath the table, and they need to stay put.
Right.
And if someone comes and they accidentally drop food, the dog still needs to stay put, right?
Right.
New people come in the restaurant, the dog can't get up and say, hi, how are you?
Right.
So that's kind of some of the training and the things that we do.
Right.
My favorite trick with Levi, let's go this way, sit, that the kids seem to like the most is high five. Ah, good boy. So,
That's cute.
there you go.
Such a
That's
good
Levi.
boy.
So those are his basics. He can do agility and some other things, but
Nice. Well, thank you so much for that demonstration. That was awesome. Okay, so you were telling me the therapy dogs, you go out and visit different locations, right?
Correct.
So where could you kind of, outline where you would take him for therapy?
Sure. So us and Dog Alliance has 120 therapy teams, which means a handler like me and a dog that has been trained and certified to go out and work with children or the elderly or the sick in hospitals. Come here, Levi. Come here, bud. Sit down.
So you take him to like retirement homes and
Right,
stuff?
so we have
or-
120 teams.
Yes.
There's 180 different sites. So we
Right.
go to libraries. On campus, we're a huge hit during finals week.
I can imagine.
Yes, in fact, we started out with the libraries at one campus, and now I have like 4 campuses calling, and like the law department and the social work department, everyone wants to have the dog come for their own division or
That's very
department.
cool.
So that's kind of neat.
I've read somewhere that as you pet an animal, it helps to calm you, as a human.
Right.
When we give affection to animals, they relax, we relax.
Right. So studies show that it releases serotonin,
Oh.
which brings about that sense of calm.
Right.
The same thing that is released like when a mother nurses her child.
Right.
That sense of calm comes about. I see it a lot when we do reading. The dogs go to school and they're part of a program called Bow Wow Reading Dogs, where
Nice.
we select children who are below grade level readers, and usually that have like a self-esteem issue or maybe some behavior challenges or maybe not a strong network at home.
Right.
And our volunteer goes every single week of the school year and they read with the child. And the goal is to improve their reading level.
Oh, very cool.
So the kind of cool thing is that when you bring a dog and you read with a child, you have the ADD kid and they're jumping and they're, they
yes.
can't sit down.
I used to substitute teach 3rd grade.
Yes, so you've seen it.
Oh, yes.
But we put the child on a carpet and we get a book and we lay the dog next to him. And then you watch and the kid opens the book and they pet and you can just see,
Yes.
and then the child settles. And then pretty soon the child's like reading away and then you say, time's up. No, I want to read another book, right? So you take someone who was afraid to read and didn't have, was apprehensive. Come here.
Yes.
Sit down, Levi. Good boy. And then, you can teach him to read. And it's
Very
enjoyable for
cool.
the child and it's enjoyable for the dog, it's enjoyable for the handler.
Right.
Very popular program.
That's awesome. I see his little harness here. That's so neat. Can you kind of tell me what the significance of having the harness is?
So sometimes we'll be, come here, Levi, let's move this so you're more comfortable. Sometimes we'll be in hospitals or a school or places where they may not expect to see a dog.
Right.
And so when I go to those places, he wears the vest. And it lets people know that he is supposed to be there.
Right.
That he is. And you can see his says therapy dog, and it has the reading dog program on the other side.
Nice.
And then Levi's been doing this for a long time, so he has lots of service pins.
Very cool. So watching YouTube again, there was one dog that had a collar that said, "Please don't pet."
Right? So the tricky thing when you are out and you're practicing with a service dog, or I have a veteran and I'm teaching him how to be out in public with his dog, people are very curious, right? The dogs, we
Yes.
pick them because they're friendly and easygoing,
Right.
and so people are curious and they want to come up and say, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I see you have a dog. Can I pet it?"
Right.
Well, these guys are with this dog 24/7 and they're trying to live their lives. So
Right.
it's not that they're being unfriendly, it's just if they stopped and talked to every single person everywhere they went, they wouldn't have a life.
Right.
And so some of the veterans will choose to have do not pet on the dog,
Right.
just to kind of say, hey, we're working,
Right.
right? Same as if someone who was blind had a service dog, you certainly wouldn't want to pet that dog and then
Right.
risk that the person gets injured.
Exactly.
So,
Because
similar
the dog
concept.
needs to pay attention to the environment when the person can't see. I mean, you
Right.
want to stop the human before they walk out in traffic. That's the whole reason why the dog is there, right?
Right, and so especially I've talked to folks who have service dogs because they are blind,
Right.
and they won't tell anyone their dog's name, right? Because hey,
Yes.
Spot, and the dog
Right.
looks, and the person gets injured. So,
Oh,
that
would be a bad situation.
yeah. So just out of respect, if they are a service dog, not a therapy dog,
Right.
then we should try to just let them have their lives,
Right.
right?
Yes.
If it's a therapy dog like Levi, which you can see he's like so anxious for you to pet him.
Yes, he is. And I will pet him some more in a little bit.
Yes. But that's why, you know, Levi is picked to be a therapy dog because
Right.
that's what he thrives on, right?
Yes.
If I go to a nursing home and I'm visiting someone, you know, they want Levi to come up and want to be pet,
Right,
So it's a
exactly.
different purpose. So
Yes.
yes, he should be pet all day. That's what makes him happy, and that's what his
Well,
job is.
good. That's good. Then he's perfectly suited for his job then, right?
Yes,
Is
yes.
that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know if I'd have him as a service dog. It would take me a lot, you know, work to say, no, you
Right.
can't. Everyone cannot pet
Oh,
you.
yes. That's, you know, I guess you'd have to look for a certain disposition, you know, to have a dog, because typically dogs are like, you know, they want to please you, they want to have, you know, affection and attention. But then if you're going to put the dog into service where, you know, it's going to be leading a blind person, or it's going to be, you know, pulling someone out of that traumatic situation, then you want a different kind of disposition. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's so much a different disposition, except, but really the training is different.
Oh,
like,
the
So
training.
for our service dogs, we are adamant that they cannot go up to someone unless we cue them to go say hi.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
You know, it's just a different way of training.
Right,
Right.
okay.
And so I don't spend hours with Levi teaching him not to go to people. Like, in fact, right now he works with adults that have disabilities,
Right.
who are learning to train dogs like for a living.
Right.
So he's kind of, you know, his training's a little bit different right now.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Okay, so a little bit off topic.
Okay.
I love Facebook, and there was a short clip on Facebook about a dog. I think it was in Switzerland or somewhere. A dog was trained to return lost items. This was in an airport in like the Netherlands, and people would go and search the planes to make sure that, you know, passengers got all their stuff off the flight, right?
Okay.
So the dog had a little harness like this, and it had pockets on the sides.
Okay.
So what they would do is they would show the item to the dog would sniff it, and then they'd say, okay, go find him. And the dog would run through the airport, you know, all the security, everybody knows
Right.
that the dog belongs to the airport. And they would go up to the person, and they'd like get the person's attention, and they would have the item in
Okay.
the little pack thing.
Right.
I was like, oh, that's a great idea. You know, another way that we can, you know, keep them out of the cages so they can have, you know,
Right.
a use, and they can be, you know, social, and, you know, lots of ways that we can train animals to help. You know, in the beginning of time, we became friends with coyotes. Coyotes are the, you know, ancestors of the dogs.
Right.
And that's how mankind thrived, because the coyote can hear better and smell better
Right.
and approaching danger, and protect the humans, because we can't, you know, we don't have fur. Our hearing is not as good as animals.
Right.
You know, we don't have the claws and the teeth and everything. So I don't see why we can't have more animals in service instead of in cages. So. Can you tell? I
Yes.
love animals, and I want them to all have homes. That's my my ambition.
Yeah.
So,
if I had my way, every school would have a therapy dog in their
Yes.
counseling office.
and that would be the best thing ever, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? That's why we're here talking about it today. So I know that you have another clip for us. So we would like to cut to the clip, and then Debbie and I are going to move back to the table. And so could you kind of tell us the second clip, what it's about?
So the second one is showing two of our veterans who have similar stories, talking about their symptoms and what they went through and how they are integrating back into society, and that the dog will help them do that.
Very cool. Okay.
My name's Alan Grice, and I'm a corporal. I enlisted as a combat engineer in March 6, 2009. A combat engineer finds bombs and gets rid of them. Essentially, we clear the way so that others may pass.
My name is Patrick Stockwell. This is my wife, Patty Stockwell. My first 3 deployments were in Iraq. 07, 08, and 09, I did 3 back-to-back tours. My last deployment, when I was in Afghanistan, I was driving. I did over 70 convoys and over 20,000 miles in like 9 months in Kandahar. My first deployment was tough in 07 because of my son-in-law being killed in Iraq. And she's got a picture at the house of me and him hugging. And I'd see him in the afternoon and we talked for a little bit, and it was just weird. And then, 2 weeks later, I think is when he was killed.
I came home from war March 13th, 2011. And, you know, the Army trains you to go to war, but I don't think I've ever been trained on how to come home.
With me and all the other Reserve and National Guards out there, when we get home, we got to put our suit and tie on and go right into work with a bunch of civilians that have no clue what's going on in my head.
My friends really didn't notice it because when I would hang out with them, we'd drink, and when I would drink, it would take the edge off, so to speak, so I could be myself. I'm really only my worst when I'm by myself. It's a tough thing. I mean, I was lucky. I had the support of my wonderful wife that was sitting there going, "You're not the same person." I go, "Yeah, I am. I'm fine. I'm fine." But after this last deployment, with her constantly nudging me, I was like, you know what? Let me go check this out. I went to the VA and I was like, this is when I was at my worst. I was in a very dark place. And that's when I started looking at service dogs, and I found Debi's website, and she's been a lifesaver. Realizing that I was gonna get Piper has kept me going. I think Piper's really gonna help me when it comes to being alone, being able to break that barrier when someone walks up to me. Piper's gonna go wherever I go, that's just a fact. Piper's not a dog. She's a companion.
She is going to be his battle buddy. He's going to be able to reach out and pet her and just be there for him.
We're going to become a team, like in the military. Like when you're with a squad and you train with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And with her, it's going to be the same thing. She's going to know when I'm getting stressed, and she's going to walk up and say, "Yo, let's go. Let's get out of here." If someone gets a dog, they should feel, hey, I paid my dues for this country. Let me let a dog help me out a little bit on the back end. She's a great dog. She's a loving dog. They did a great job. I love her to death already.
That was a great video. Thank you so much for bringing that for us. Thank you, Debi.
My pleasure.
Okay, so during the break, you were kind of giving me some statistics about returning veterans. Can you kind of rehash that for me again?
Yeah, so according to the Veterans Administration, a veteran commits suicide every 65 minutes in the United States.
Oh my goodness.
So I don't know about you, but I just think, especially here on Mother's Day, think about a mom who loses their son or daughter to PTSD. So that's kind of our motivation, is that, we have these dogs, we can change lives, we can prevent some mom from losing their son or daughter.
Right. That is, it's very disheartening for someone who gives so much of themselves to come back home and, be facing an affliction like that and feel lost and alone, and feeling the need to end their own life in order to make it stop.
Right.
So having a dog is a major contributor to stopping all of the inner conflict and voices that happen in the head, right?
Right. So, a pet dog as well, right? Everyone can't have a service dog, but even a pet dog has been shown to really help these men and women as they come home and transition back into normal civilian life.
Okay, so say that somebody already has like a family dog or something. Is there a way that maybe they could, train their own dog to kind of help with alleviate the symptoms of PTSD?
Certainly, any pet dog can be taught to be well-mannered in public and to sit on cue, down on cue, not counter surf, not bark at their friends, become
or
a good,
grab food in a restaurant.
Yeah, become a good, well-mannered dog. not every dog, not every pet dog is appropriate to be a service dog.
Right.
When we look for dogs that are candidates to be service dogs, we're looking for a dog that really is not fazed by other dogs. So they don't get growly, they don't get overly excited, they just are like, ah, there's a dog, I should just keep doing my job.
Right.
We look for dogs that are not fazed by people of all different shapes and sizes. So Asian, black, white, Hispanic, whatever the color of the person, tall, short, beard, glasses, hats,
Right.
you know, little tiny 2-year-olds. So we need dogs that no matter what the person looks like, they're just like, oh, you're a person, I like you.
Right.
Right? So those are kind of some of the things. We're looking for dogs that, like if they're pet, funny, maybe, you know, someone's having a nightmare and they're thrashing around,
Right.
that the dog isn't going to go cower in the corner, but rather would say, oh, you must need me, you know,
Yes.
and lick the person and wake them up.
Yes.
So we're looking for a very specific kind of dog that we train to be a service dog.
Right.
So my point is that not every pet dog is going to be appropriate. And
Understood.
it's a lot of work. It takes us 6 to 8 months with professional trainers working with the dogs to
Right.
get them to the level where we feel they can go into public successfully. It's really hard if someone has PTSD already to put them in the position of doing that level of training.
Right. The responsibility of.
Yeah, and just, you know,
Of
the
it.
knowledge. Not every
Right.
person has the knowledge on how to do that. So then we'd have to teach them how to train the dog and how to handle the problems. And it just seems somewhat of an unrealistic expectation.
Okay, so if someone has, okay, let's just say, for example, somebody has a dog that is a perfect candidate. You know, it's already a pet dog, already knows the soldier, loves the soldier. How would someone start the process? Do you have to register as a PTSD dog? I mean, is there like a data bank that, how does a person get started?
So that is a tricky question.
Oh,
okay. It's tricky in that in the United States right now, there are no standards that say this is what a dog must do and this is what they must go through to be a service dog.
Right.
There is a group called Assistance Dogs International, which is right now really the most prestigious certifying body in the United States.
I'm sorry, let me stop you again.
Okay.
What was that? What was the program?
Assistance Dogs International.
Assistance Dogs International, and is that .com or
It is a .org.
.org? Okay, great. I'm
Okay.
sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. So they have standards, and reputable service dog training programs are going to seek to achieve Assistance Dogs International certification. The list of questions that they give you to pass is 50 pages long.
Wow.
It is extremely extensive.
Yes.
Takes a long time to meet all of their guidelines.
Okay.
And then they do a site visit, and you know, they're pretty careful to make sure who they certify.
Right.
So right now in the United States, that's the best we got.
Okay, so we
there you
have
go.
a graphic up on our TV screen. Can you kind of, you know, walk us through some of these steps?
Yeah, so this slide is talking about what is an assistance dog or a service dog.
Right.
And you know, to be defined as a service dog, it needs to be unobtrusive in public,
Right.
and it needs to do 3 tasks that mitigate the disability of the person, their partner.
Right.
Okay, and there are several types of service dogs. One is a guide dog, so that would be working with someone who's blind, as we talked about before.
Right.
A hearing alert dog, working with someone who is deaf.
Right.
There are mobility dogs that would, you know, someone's in a wheelchair, maybe they pick up their keys or put the laundry into the washing machine.
Right.
And then there's this other category, which would be your PTSD service dogs, your diabetes alert dogs, your peanut allergy alert dogs.
Oh,
all the
things you don't even think about.
Right.
Yes.
Autism type dogs.
Right.
So dogs that are helping for things that are not hearing or being blind.
My goodness, that's a lot to cover, isn't it? I'm wondering, does this come cheap or free?
No, it's not.
You know, I'm going somewhere with this, right? I have a plan with these questions.
Okay, that's good. So, you know, to train the dogs takes a lot of work.
Right.
You know, even starting from the point where we're selecting the dogs. We've had times where we have touched 100 different dogs in a shelter before we picked one that
Right.
we wanted to be in our program.
Yes.
So you have to get the dog up front. We put the dogs through the program, and about 25% of them will make it into the program a couple months of training, and then they'll start displaying some behavior that we don't want, and then we have to drop them from the program.
Okay.
Okay, so that effort's there. It takes us 6 to 8 months, assuming the dog we start with is fairly mature to start with, is well-mannered and has what we're looking for.
Right.
Occasionally we've made a mistake and gotten a dog that's a little bit younger, and then our cycle's more like 1.5 years.
Okay.
Just because dog has to grow up.
Right,
It has
understood.
a lot of potential, but a little bit
Yes.
too crazy to be out in public.
Right.
Um,
And so you have to pay for dog food and shots and everything. It doesn't come cheap, I can imagine.
Right, so we pay for all the vet care for the dog.
Right.
And then we pay the trainers, and we pay the staff that goes and accepts the applications from veterans, and then
Right.
does all the legwork to make sure that they're in a place where the dog is going to be helpful,
Right.
right?
You know, that sounds really expensive.
It is.
Okay, so how can we contribute? How can we find the area to donate the big bucks? Because that's what it takes to have these dogs, for the training, for the food, for everything that it takes to have a dog, to hire the person. Where can we find you?
So our website is austindogalliance.org.
Right.
And of course, being a nonprofit, on the main page right at the top, it says
Yes.
donate here.
Yes. And
It's pretty
be
easy.
generous.
Yes, pretty easy.
We like generous people.
Yes, and for all of our, folks that are more into the texting and all
Yes.
that, they could text Hounds to
Right.
41444.
Very
And
cool.
do a
And don't do it
donation.
while you're driving, okay?
Yeah, when you're stopped.
Right. Don't text and drive. Yes. Well, you know, it sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like, I think it would take a special person also to be so dedicated. All the times that you have contacted me is at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, whoa, she's awake.
Do not share my secrets.
Well, I'm sorry. You just get up really freaking early. I
do.
can imagine.
It is a labor of love.
It is,
It is,
definitely.
yes.
And I can imagine that everyone else you work with is equally devoted too.
Yes, I'm very lucky to work in a place where, we are a nonprofit, we pay as much as we can.
Right.
But they're never going to get rich working for us.
Definitely not.
But, you can bring your dog to work, and every time you come to work, there's
Right.
other dogs. And, we get the joy of handing the leash to someone and then having them call us a month later and them saying, you saved my life. I was suicidal, and now I got a girlfriend, and I, got a new job, and
Yes.
you saved my life. And,
our
it's worth
veterans
it.
deserve that.
Right.
They go and they fight for our country, they fight for our freedom, and then they come home and they're, an emotional wreck. Let's do something to help them.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
So that they can integrate back into society and lead normal lives. Because, if I were in a war zone ducking every 5 minutes, that would not be fun.
No.
Especially, somebody gets mad at another driver and blows a horn, then you're like, whoa, on the ground,
Right. Yeah.
That's
when you
not appealing
when
for
you
a
work with
veteran.
these, it's been men primarily so far.
Right.
When you work with these men and you hear their stories of what they did overseas and what their job was, and then how it affects them now.
Right.
You want to help. You want to do as much as you can.
Right.
In that moment when you give them the dog and you have the big burly guy with all the tattoos, tough looking
Yes.
dude, crying,
Yeah.
you did good.
Yes.
So, yes.
I grew up in El Paso, and we have a very large base, military base in El Paso. It's called Fort Bliss. And I knew someone there in El Paso that he was a medic in the field, and he was driving a Humvee or something, and the front driver tire rolled over a landmine.
Oh.
And so this guy, they saved his life, but they couldn't save his legs. They had to totally reconstruct him from the waist down. And he didn't have a dog either. I couldn't imagine what it would feel like, you know, to be a regular functioning person one day, and then to have something like that, a life-altering situation happen to you, where then suddenly you're thrown into, you know, a life-saving mode because, you know, you've had this terrible tragedy happen. You know, that someone like that, you know, definitely could use a PTSD trained dog, you know,
Right.
not only to help keep him calm, but, you know, also when you don't have legs,
Right.
you know, we take our bodies for granted, you know, we always have our arms intact and our legs intact, but then suddenly one day they're gone, no
Right.
legs, you know. You can't just, you know, get up off the couch and go turn on the TV or, you know, grab yourself a soda from the refrigerator. You know, you have to do the whole, you know, strapping on the legs, you know, and I've seen people actually put their appendages on and off, and it's quite an ordeal, you know. And I watch it thinking, gosh, what would it feel like to have to go through that, you know? So I think, you know, not only does it help keep the person calm, but it's, you know, somebody else there, you know, for the single guys, and ladies, not just men are afflicted with this.
Right.
It would be, you know, someone there to help, you know, grab the TV remote or something silly like that. You know, we take it for granted.
Right. So we actually have a PowerPoint slide if you'd like to look at it. It
Oh,
lists,
nice.
some of the tasks that we can train the dog to do.
Okay.
So if you like, I can go through those.
That'd be wonderful if we could get that PowerPoint, and we'll go ahead and discuss that.
Okay. So, so technically, to be a service dog, the dog has to do 3 tasks.
Can you?
It says it's got the dog holding the beer can.
I like that. Definitely a reason why I would send the dog to the fridge. Bring me a beer, sweetie.
We actually, one of our veterans, so we do a process, we call it Go Home Week. And once the dog is ready to transition from the trainer to the serviceman, we spend about 30 hours, more if needed, but on average it's about 30 hours of one-on-one time between the trainer and our team and the person who's getting the dog. And one of the guys kept joking, well, I want the dog to get my beer. So we kind of taught the veteran how to teach his dog to do that. So we joke about it, but you know, he really wanted it, so we taught the dog to do it.
Oh, nice. That is awesome. Oh, the PowerPoint went away.
Okay, I can just talk about it.
Yes.
So the dogs, we have a list of about 100 different tasks that the dog can do to help someone who has PTSD. So certainly if it was a mobility dog, then we would be teaching the dog to, you know, help pick up things or close doors, that kind of thing. But for PTSD service dogs, what we're doing is teaching them to do things like, say they're in a grocery store and you know how the line will form behind you.
Yes.
Well, oftentimes these gentlemen that have PTSD, that makes them very nervous. They're not worried about people coming up behind.
Yes.
So we'll teach the dog to go behind and do a solid stay.
Nice.
So then people can't come up.
Right.
Or say they decide they want to go to a concert or some sort of public event where there's lots of people around, and they start to get apprehensive. We can teach the dog to circle them, to just kind of, you know, create a barrier where they're not going to feel closed in.
Yes.
Perhaps you have someone that's afraid to go into a room. You know, they're worried that maybe someone's hiding out there, or there's, you know, they're apprehensive about going into a place.
Right.
So we can teach the dog to go in, search, and then come back and alert if someone is in the room.
Nice.
We can teach the dog to go into a room and push on the light switch.
Right.
Advantages of using labs who are big.
Yes, tall enough to reach the
Tall
light
enough
switch.
to, yeah, I guess we'd have to do one of those touch on, touch off if we had a little dog.
Right.
We can teach the dog to, a lot of times we'll teach the dog to do like a pressure on their lap. So they're kind of getting anxious or worried about something, and so the dog will teach them to do a stay, and they just that pressure on them and not moving, we can hopefully get the person to calm down.
Right.
We can teach them to go get medication. Maybe it's kept in a bag on a certain shelf, and we can teach the dog to go fetch it and bring it back.
Right.
We had one, actually a teenager that we gave a dog to. he would start to get very anxious, and what they needed to do was break the behavior.
Right.
So his caregiver was taught to send the dog to go get the remote, bring it back to him. So you joke about the remote.
I was, but it's a real
but
thing.
It's real. To get the remote to turn on the TV, because then, you know, we'd change the sound and we'd change the visual, and then he's doing something, and it would usually stop that stimming, anxious behavior.
Oh, very nice. An interruption of the gradual building of the mood.
Yes.
That's great.
So those are just some of the ideas of things that we do. We interview the veteran or the person that we're giving the dog to.
Right.
And we find out, what are your stressors? What things in your life are difficult? And then we strategize on what we should teach the dog so that we can help that.
Very nice. Okay, and I know I'm going to sound redundant. How do we find you again?
We're usanddogalliance.org.
Right, and it has donate now?
Yes, it does. It's like it says quick donate.
Awesome.
You could also text hounds to 41444.
Right, very cool. Okay. Okay, so is there anything else that you want to cover that we haven't discussed already?
Well, so we have some exciting news.
I want to hear it.
Well, I think it's exciting. So our program is growing, and we are finding that we would like to train more dogs. Right now we do about 15 a year, and we'd like to move to 30 or 60, you know, increase our numbers. And to do that, we need expanded facilities.
Right.
So we are hoping to...
and that would take money.
And that would take money. Yes, everything comes back to money, unfortunately.
Of course it does. Dead presidents rule the world. Don't forget.
Yeah, so we are going to build a kennel and training facility so that we can, the first 2 months of training is pretty intense for the dog.
Right.
Sit, down, come, stay, leave it, leash walking, all of those basics. And so our plan is to have a really nice kennel facility, because
of course,
these dogs are kind of special, right?
They are definitely
so we
special.
want to build something that looks more like a house than it does a kennel.
Right.
But they would stay with us for those first 2 months, learn all the basics, and then either volunteers that are really good at training that we can teach the basics to, or our professional trainers would then take the dog home, and then that would start the phase of training where they're practicing being in public.
Oh, very cool.
But our goal is to build this kennel so that we can increase the number of dogs.
Right.
So that's kind of our next project, our next venture to grow this program.
Oh, very nice. You know, I couldn't imagine putting so much effort into training a dog and loving it and giving it the attention, having it there every day, you know, leaning up against you because you're training it.
Right.
That's got to be hard, giving the dog away. I couldn't imagine.
You know, so actually that does come up. And so what we do, the go home week I mentioned earlier, where the trainer and our team works with the person that's going to get the dog. At the end of the week, we have a ceremony, and we invite the trainer, the primary trainer, and all their friends and family.
Right.
Because let's face it, they're all going to be involved in this, right?
Yes, yes.
You know, and the dog goes to doctor's appointments and to the school and to everywhere that trainer is going.
Right.
So everybody in their world knows that they have this service dog.
Yes.
And then we invite the person that's going to get the dog and all of their friends and family. And then we have a reception. And it's really a celebration of, you know, this person has given of themselves to train the dog, and they are doing this selfless act of handing that leash to somebody.
Right.
And then the joy from the family who is being given this gift and this chance, this hope, this, you know,
new lease on life.
New lease on life. You know, I get a chance to make a difference.
Right, life-changing event.
Yes. And
receiving a dog that's trained.
Yeah, so it's really lots of tears sometimes.
I'm sure.
But joyous tears, because the person has done something remarkable, and they know, as hard as it is to give that leash away, they are making a difference, a life-changing difference for somebody.
My goodness.
So it's a nice ceremony. It's one of my favorite days of the year is when we get to do this.
Oh, so it's once a year?
No, so it's maybe, you know, every 4 months or so. We'll do one.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so I watch a lot of YouTube. We've already gone over that.
Okay.
Maybe
I should put it on YouTube.
Yes. We need to have a videographer follow you around on all your daily stuff.
At my next go-home party.
I saw a piece where they were giving dogs to prisoners. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so there's therapy groups or service dog groups in the country that will do all that initial training with the prison population.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, similar to our concept of building the kennel and having that intense training take place.
Right.
They can do it with a partnership through a prison.
Right. And so do they do that here in Texas? Because I think it was like in North Carolina or somewhere that they were doing that.
I have heard rumblings that there was a pilot program in Goliad,
Right.
but I don't know the status of it now.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that was sort of off topic, but you know, watching everything that was applicable to your organization, I
Right.
kind of, you know, you know how YouTube like pushes up the videos and you're like, oh, what's that
Oh,
one?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I learned as much as I possibly could about your organization and about, you know, the way that you operate and everything. And, you know, I'm so grateful that you came, you know, to visit us today, and I really appreciate you taking the time out, especially on Mother's Day.
My pleasure.
Yes. Yes. Is there anything else that you'd like to go over before we close our episode? Because we're very close to the end.
So folks could get involved with us.
Yes.
So when we build this new kennel, I have this idea that we could have veterans who are already healed and have integrated into civilian life already.
Right.
Perhaps they would like to volunteer their time to help us train the service dogs.
Right.
So that would be a way to give back. We also need more therapy dogs. I
Right.
mentioned earlier that we have teams that go to libraries. I have a wait list of about 50 schools
Okay.
that would love to have another therapy
Right.
dog. So there's lots of kids out there that struggle with reading, and
Right.
if you have time either on the weekend or during the week and you have a dog and you wouldn't mind volunteering with your dog,
Right.
we are always open to having new volunteers.
Very cool. Okay, so that is all the time that we have for today. I want to thank our special guest, Debi Krakar with
you.
Hounds for Heroes. So I know you already said, I like to be called Debbie.
That's all right.
It's because all week I've been reading Deborah.
It's okay.
Thank you so much for being with us here at ATX Underground. You can check us out online at atxunderground.com. And how do we find you again, Debbie?
AustinDogAlliance.org.
Yes, make sure and donate generously because we really would like to receive it. Thanks. Have a great day.